There's a considerable debate about, did the march end up passing what became the Civil Rights Act of 1964? And of course, Kennedy had introduced this law. After Kennedy's assassination, Lyndon Johnson said, we need to pass this in a way of honoring Kennedy. But I think what's important to remember is that they ended up passing a law that was very different from one that Kennedy had proposed and one that Kennedy had supported. And I think the principal difference was understanding civil rights and the civil rights agenda as something that was a national and a sort of a broad, both economic and racial issue. For Kennedy, civil rights was primarily a Southern issue. It was primarily focused on legal equality, voting rights, the access to the vote, access to public accommodations, again, primarily in the South. And he was actually, one of his arguments about the equal employment measures of the bill was that this would actually alienate Northern conservatives who didn't have a problem passing a law that would end legal segregation in Alabama or give people the right to vote in Mississippi. But they were particularly not going to support a law that would tell a private employer what they could do in a hiring decision, right? That this was something that would not fly among Northern Republicans. And I think, and in many ways, he was right. I mean, that was a big sticking point. But what the march did, I think, was to make the argument that, as A. Philip Randolph said in his speech to the march, it's fine to give somebody the right to eat in a restaurant, but that doesn't mean anything if somebody doesn't have a job and can't afford to eat in that restaurant, to pay for their meal. And I think that central message, which was really the central message of the march, that the two things cannot be separated, was something that was not really on Kennedy's agenda. Kennedy talked about economic policy in ways that were completely separated from civil rights policies. And I think you can see, the effect of the march really came to fruition in Lyndon Johnson's administration after the assassination. And I think you can see very much that fusing of these two issues that came directly out of the march.